I'm Cutter from 105.7 WAPL, and I'm here with Alyssa and Rocky from Faith Technologies. Thank you for taking some time today. I appreciate it. What exactly do you guys do at Faith Technologies?
I am the Wellness Program Director, and I've been with FTI for 16 years.
Thank you.
I'm the Vice President of Safety. I've been with the organization just a little over 10 years this week.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the...
Thank you.
And you're Alyssa, obviously, and you're Rocky.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we got that right. It is, of course, suicide prevention in September, and amongst construction workers, the suicide rate is very high. Can you dig into that a little bit? Like, what are the reasons? Why is this happening, and what does this mean to you guys?
Yeah, so the construction industry is definitely one of the leading industries with suicide concerns and mental health concerns. They actually have 4 times higher suicide rate than any other industry. So with being in construction and manufacturing, it's been a focus of ours for a number of years, but definitely have had a heightened focus over the last few years. So with it being Suicide Prevention Month, and it's also Construction Suicide Prevention Week, the 9th through the 13th of September, it's definitely a primary focus for us just to keep this top of mind, but it's not just the month of September that we're focusing on this. This is an all-year effort. It's a journey that we're on, that consistently trying to keep this top of mind and resources readily available for our team members so they know exactly where they need to go when they need that support.
As a supervisor or site lead, you're 6 times more likely to deal with a mental health related event than you are an on-site injury. And the amount of effort that we in OSHA and industry put on physical safety, we need to take that same approach when it comes to mental safety as well.
What kind of activities then are you guys kind of up to help this?
Yeah, so a couple of things that we're doing is we created some You Matter shirts. So they say You Matter, and it's got the 988 number on it. So 988 is that suicide crisis prevention line for anybody to call, confidential, 24/7, readily available resources and support for individuals. So these T-shirts will say You Matter, 988 on them. And really that's just a symbol of FTI showing our team members that we are here to support them and that they matter always, not just throughout the month of September. So we'll have these T-shirts, and then we also have matching stickers. So we're very big on stickers and hard hat stickers in our organization. So these stickers also say You Matter with the 988. So these stickers can be placed anywhere on laptops and hard hats so that they always have that 988 number top of mind if they need it. And then we'll consistently push out some resources again. We do this throughout the year, but really heavy focus, just trying to keep all of the different resources that we have top of mind for any individuals that may need it. And then we've got a few things happening on the job site as well that I think Rocky will talk about.
Yeah, so every one of our employees have a company-wide email. So every Monday we put out a Mental Health Monday safety bulletin that goes out to everybody in the organization that has different topics, that not just for our folks in the field, but stuff that they can use at home and with their families as well. We're at work a lot of hours, but we're also at home living life the rest of the time too. So we put a lot of information there. We are taking place with the National Stand Down for Construction Suicide Prevention Week, which is September 9th through the 13th. And we have a moment of silence that happens. It's 1:50 Central, but it's different time zones, and we're spread out coast to coast. So we'll be getting all that information out to our folks each day, so they can have a topic in the morning and then take part in that stand down, that moment of silence on that Monday, and then continue to add stuff throughout the week to keep it front of mind.
Now, out of curiosity, why do you think suicide rate is so much higher amongst construction workers than the average human?
I think it's that tough person mentality that typical construction workers have, that they're tough and they don't need to get any help. They can deal with their issues and their concerns on their own. And it's also a tough industry. I mean, there's a lot of physical ailments that individuals are going through with being in construction. And then that relates back to needing to take, opioids, and there's a lot of substance and alcohol abuse that goes on that then is directly related to mental health. So I think just having that tough mentality and that physical labor that job is kind of focused on kind of relates back to just not being too tough to ask for help.
And there are a lot of hours. Individuals are moving around, traveling away from family, away from their just support groups, and just continuing to let them know that to talk about this, ask the questions. We have a lot of programs that we have in place that, that we use within a company that we use to combat this. We have a cultural care check-in every morning with our crews. So that superintendent or that site lead can, look them, face to face and say, okay, this individual's, he's ready to go today. If something's a little off, he can tell that too. He can pull him to the side after that huddle's done and just ask some questions, and create that conversation. Maybe he's upset because he's missing his daughter's first day of school because he's traveling 8 states away to work, or there's something else that's going on that we don't know about. So giving our guys opportunities and the training to recognize some of that is something that has really helped us over the last few years. And we continue to deliver that to all of our leaders, whether they've been with us for 30 years or they're a new hire to us.
It's amazing to see a company really, truly pay attention to this. You brought up the fact that it's not just September, obviously, it's all year round. So I imagine then you guys are involved in doing stuff all year round.
Yeah, absolutely. So we rolled out a new employee assistance program earlier this year. So many employees might be familiar with what an EAP is, or employee assistance program. But what we saw with our previous EAP was not a whole lot of utilization. And the sad part is when they needed to get help, they weren't able to get that immediate help that they needed. They needed to wait months. And that's just not okay. So we listened to our employees and what they needed, and we rolled out an enhanced employee assistance program earlier this year with a company called Lyra. FTI is able to offer 8 covered counseling or therapy sessions per employee or family member per year. And that has gone over really, really well. We've heard time and time again from our employees how beneficial this new benefit is. They're able to get quick access to care. The average time that they need to wait to see somebody is 1 day versus months.
That's serious. That's amazing.
Yes. So, and then they're able to get their teens and their children in for care as well. They can pick virtual if they want. They can pick in person. They have thousands of individuals in network for them to be able to find somebody in person in their area as well. So that's been a really big benefit for us. Another favorite benefit that we offer is something called time to recharge. And that's 2 hours of paid time off outside of their regular PTO hours every month that they can use for anything that they want. But really, it's focused on self-care. So they can share stories of how they're utilizing their time to recharge, and we kind of read through those, and we share that in those Mental Health Monday messages that Rocky was talking about, just to kind of highlight how other employees are using it and to normalize using it, which definitely has gone a long way. We have about 95% of employees are utilizing their time to recharge every month, which is amazing to see. And they really call this benefit invaluable. Like it means so much to our team members, just those 2 hours of extra time every month to use towards themselves. And like Rocky mentioned, it's super important for them to spend that time with their family. A lot of them are away on job sites and away from where they're living, and they want to take that time to head back home for the weekend earlier than normal, beat that traffic. That first and foremost is going to help your mental health, beating that traffic and rush hour.
Yeah.
But then spending that extra time with your family and back to school. So people are wanting to be able to take their kids to school on that first day of school, and how much that means to people. So that's been a really invaluable benefit that we rolled out as well.
Rocky, you mentioned the 1 minute of silence during the Stand Down campaign. What is the significance of that?
Well, this is something as part of the National Construction Suicide Prevention Week that was started, I believe, about 4 years ago now. And this is just something where the industries realized that there's been a gap. There's been a gap in this training and this topic. Again, we spend a lot of time on training and PPE and all this, stuff related to that physical safety side of things, but we miss this part. And it is one of the leading statistics that we have not figured out a way to fix yet. And putting more emphasis on it, taking the time, companies the same size of ours around the country are participating in this, and you're able to register your company and highlight what you've done, take pictures. It gets out in the industry that companies the size of ours with 4,000 plus employees are doing this. Why can't some of the other ones as well? So just making sure that it's important enough to be able to keep front of mind. And over the years, it hasn't been, and it's getting better and better each year.
And that 1 minute is really just focused on, those we have lost who have died by suicide, and then us as an organization committing to helping prevent further loss of life as well.
It's amazing. It really is. The fact that you guys have recognized it, that FTI is doing something about it. Hats off. Hard hats off. with all the stickers that look like my punk rock guitar case from when I was a teenager. Rocky, can you talk more about the concept of, and I'm sorry I have to look at my notes for this because I don't want to screw up the wording, safety starts with what's under the hard hat. Now, obviously, we're talking about mental health and the brain, but talk to me about that and what that means.
Yeah, there's still a lot of companies out there that are, hey, here's your hard hat, go to work. When an individual just thinks now they're just a number. And, we bring our folks in, through the hiring process. Day one, we get them through what we call onboarding, and then they stay with us for another 2 weeks before they go even out on the job site or the production floor. And part of that is really getting them to understand that, they are part of an organization. We need them as much as they need us. And, every class, every day, we start with a culture of care piece of it. So they understand, they care about me. I'm not just a number to them. And, getting them to understand what that means, understand that they can go to a mentor, go to a veteran employee, go to the supervisor, their workforce manager, that they have so many opportunities and support out there to have conversations. So they're not just like left in the dark and don't know what's next or don't know what programs we have. So getting them to understand that they need to take care of themselves, outside of work too, and what that means, just a whole body wellness of their self to be able, when they do show up to work, we got 100% of them. So if something does happen and they're like, okay, I'm not feeling right today for whatever reason, they understand they can go have someone to talk to. And that's important as a new employee, whether you're a kid straight out of high school, 18 years old, first job ever, or someone come from an organization that, doesn't take this as serious as we do, or completely different industry in general, to be able to, where they understand that I got to be ready to go before I show up to work that day. And that is one of the most important parts of what we do. We're going to teach them what they need to once they get out there, but we don't necessarily control what they do outside of work. So getting them to understand how important it is for them to be 100% when they get there, that's where it starts.
Alyssa, can you tell us more about the kinds of, I guess, mental well-being resources and besides what we're talking about here? Because again, it sounds like FTI has really kind of gone all in on this.
Sure. So a few other things that we offer our team members is some mental well-being training. So we have 2 modules of training, one for leaders and one for all employees. Our leadership modules are required for all of our leaders to take. And that mental well-being training allows them to recognize signs and symptoms of mental health concerns within their team members, and then allows them to learn how do they react in those certain situations, how do they respond, and how do they refer them to the right resources, and understand that they're not there to fix those issues, but they're there to listen and be that active listener, be that shoulder, be that support system, and then where can they refer them to the right resources, and then how to handle different mental health crises as well. We all know that those can show up when you least expect it, and so how do you... Yes, and how do you respond to that, and where do you go, and who do you tell, and how do you respond? So all of that training our leaders will go through that training. And then our team member training is kind of along the same lines, but really also allows them to focus on their own mental well-being and what are some signs and symptoms they should look out for themselves, for their family members, for their friends. And then that too, where can they go for resources and how do they respond to that and how can they be that shoulder for that person? Our culture really is just about being there to support one another and being there and being your brother and sister's keeper and looking out for one another. You're spending the majority of your hours in a day with your teammates.
Where do I apply? We do spend
FaithTechInc.com.
We do spend a third of our life working, right? That's a real statistic, and retirement age is getting later and later. And we're living longer and longer, which is great, but it's not for those who don't make it that far. So to have that sort of togetherness and family aspect, I imagine that's absolutely gigantic for your team members.
Yeah, and what's really cool is we're growing a lot. We're hiring a lot, and it's interesting to talk to new hires and them talk about how they had heard about FTI's culture prior to applying. But then for them to actually see the culture that they heard about in action means the world. Like they can actually say, I heard that you have such a supportive and awesome culture, but for me to then start and actually see it into action is just a whole nother story, and how welcome they feel and how supported they feel. And I'll just say, like, our culture is definitely second to none and something very, very special.
Yeah, we see a lot of folks in the industry that are, talking the talk. It's the buzzword, culture of care, mental health over the last few years. But us being able to walk the walk and incorporate this into everything we do. I mean, we don't train a class no matter what the topic is without touching on this at the beginning of it. So like she said, these new employees, they get this in every single class or conversation they're having. So it is part of the culture once they get out on that production floor or out on that job site that, this isn't just some poster they saw when they walked in the office. This is something the company really believes and puts time and effort to.
Do you get, obviously construction workers, right? Do you get any pushback from that? From some of the team members? Like, I don't need that. Why are we even talking about it?
I wouldn't say at the beginning there was a lot of pushback. They just kind of ignored it, just like the industry has.
It was something new.
It was new, yeah. And it was different for them. And once they realized that they had the capacity and the training to be able to go out and have those conversations and feel comfortable, that's when we really started kind of, getting over that hump a little bit, if you will, because it wasn't something they were ever asked to do. Were they expected? Maybe. But no one ever, gave them the right tools to be successful there and programs in place. And you don't go a day out on a job site now without hearing someone talk about something that an individual was doing, not work related, that they were able to affect some change with. And that helps retention and turnover and everything else too. So.
Obviously we're talking about faith technologies and the greatness that you guys are doing within that company as far as mental health and suicide prevention is concerned. But what are some steps that peers can take to try to, broaden this initiative?
I would say, ask the questions. Being able to go out and have those tough conversations, not just, keep it all in, which we see and everyone does, is, figure out what those resources are. Whether it's a mentor, whether it's, a teammate, whether it's a family member, being able to understand that it's, like one of the shirts that we have, it's okay to not be okay, but being able to have that conversation so you know where to go. Maybe that is a program or resource that we have that we can utilize. If not, someone that can get a hold of someone else. So it's not just something that just sits there and just you keep adding to it over time. But I think just being able to have those conversations and being able to talk and communicate. I know a lot of us now are heads down on our phones all the time. We're not having those conversations that we should with our loved ones, coworkers, mentors, peers. I think just starting there and giving people the understanding that it's okay to have those conversations because you're not the only one doing it.
What do you mean? I just got to get my high score on this game. Why do you think it's essential to have this mental health training? I think I get it, but just to clarify it, like, why is it so essential to have this amount of mental health training, especially in the construction industry?
I think the more that we talk about it, the more that we're helping reduce that stigma. There's just such a high stigma related to just talking about mental health and asking for help and just including that in your daily conversations. But because this is something that we're consistently talking about and folding it into everything that we do, whether it be safety, wellness, or anything that we're doing, new hire onboarding, we want to have that culture of care really be seen in all aspects of the organization. But I think the biggest thing with the construction industry is the stigma and not being okay to ask for help. So the more that we're talking about it, the more we can train people as to how to have those conversations and to check in on one another, because that really is the most important thing is, again, we're spending the majority of our hours with these individuals. How important that is for someone to recognize that you might be, just a little, not yourself that day, and just to say, hey, are you truly okay? And is there anything that you need or anything that I can help you with? Goes such a long way. So that training is just one little piece of it, but really it's just that care and that support and really creating that environment to have that supportive environment to know that, as Rocky said, it's okay to not be okay and ask for help and ask for support. And some people might not feel comfortable going to a counselor or therapist right away. And then I would say first talk to a friend or family member or peer that you feel comfortable opening up to, or an anonymous text line or hotline. And then, make that step to a counselor or therapist. But just that one little step of opening up to somebody goes such a long way. When somebody else sees you do that, it's just a ripple effect. And more people will start asking for help and talking about it, which then further eliminates that stigma.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest parts of the training for our site leads, our superintendents, our group leaders, we're not asking them to fix it. We're not asking them to have the answer to every one of these individuals' problems.
Fix me, Rocky.
Yes.
Fix me.
But we do give them the opportunity to know where to go or know where to send them. And that was one of the biggest things from talking to our team members out in the field is now they have a better idea of what to do with someone that has an issue. It's not their job to fix. I mean, they could just be an ear for them, let them listen, but then give them the information they need moving forward after that, and what they do with it after that's, kind of on them. But just being able to let our site leads, the 20, 30-year superintendents that have never had to deal with this before, that can go build billion-dollar projects, that can't deal with this little situation. It bothered them some because they couldn't fix it. Most of the times they can fix things, but getting them to understand that we're not asking you to. We're asking you to just be familiar with the programs and being able to push them toward the resources. That's what we're asking you to do, and that's where I think really got them to understand what we were doing as a company.
Well, I asked you before about the workers themselves, the construction workers, and the arms crossed attitude, well, it's not me. But what about from the team leads? What about from the supervisors, the contractors, all of that, the people kind of in charge of having to kind of, manifest this, or not manifest it, but manage it?
That's where the training started. We started with that, the high level from the executive team. They started with the training, and then we started working it down throughout the organization. Now we're getting it into our apprenticeship schools and things like that too. But it's, working from that top-down approach to get them to understand, this is what we're asking you to do here, and putting them through those training classes and refreshers to get them, again, we train them every year on how to, build a building, run electrical. Why shouldn't we do the same thing with this?
Before we get into some more of the information in 988 and all of that, and the Suicide Prevention Month and Construction Suicide Prevention Week and the hotline, are there any personal stories that you guys would like to share about maybe a situation, obviously leave names out, but a situation that you've seen where this has really worked?
So we're working on kind of highlighting that storytelling piece. It's not easy for people to come forward, of course, with their stories. So it's definitely a journey, like I said before, and just really trying to encourage people to have that courage because, as we know, courage is contagious, and it just takes that one person to kind of step up and tell their story. But I've had peer-to-peer conversations with individuals who have talked about that LIRA benefit and how awesome that was for them to be able to utilize that themselves, and that they've used previous EAPs or they've had a previous therapist, but this was kind of second to none. Like, they got exactly what they needed out of this new benefit that we're offering, and that they were paired with a therapist that they couldn't have picked somebody better, and that's somebody that is able to help them work through some things that they weren't able to work through before. And also just kind of hearing how much our culture has really shifted to this, and that this really is the norm to talk about it and to ask for help. And that's just really cool to hear and to see. And I've been there for 16 years, and I've seen that culture shift. And it's just really cool to see that, especially being in construction, that people are more open to talking about it and sharing their stories. But again, it's a journey. So baby steps. I mean, if we can just get a few people to share their stories, that they have come forward and got the help they needed and how much it helped them. And that previously they, had suicidal thoughts, and now, they've been able to work through things based on the resources that we've been able to offer. And it's something that we continually talk about day after day after day. And so that's where I think, like, especially with leaders, they understand that this isn't something that's going away, and it's not something we're just talking about this week, and then you don't do your training and forget about it, it's fine. We're going to consistently follow up and talk about it and ensure that everybody understands the importance of this and how important it is to be there for one another.
I'd say mine's not truly a personal story. I guess it is, but we start every one of our safety department meetings off with a culture care moment, emotional thermometer, however you want, and just ask our folks that are spread out, coast to coast, that are on job sites that are representing 300 or 400, our own people, and that's their folks. That's who they're looking out for. So it's stressful. So we talk to them and say, hey, where are you at on the thermometer today? Are you in the green? Are you good? Are you in the yellow? Or are you in the red? Explain that to us as a group and get them to talk about it. And then we have a lot of other conversations after it in smaller groups to say, hey, do you need some time off? Do you need to get some help there? But just kind of gauge where they're at when it comes to that emotional thermometer piece. And that's a tool that we use in a lot of our other training as well. But it's just, again, starting the conversation. Instead of just going, hey, we got to get this building done tomorrow, we got to make sure that we're, within budget, we start it with the people side of things.
The majority of our meetings, even in the office side of things, too, also start that same way. And we kind of change things up every month and just, it's a culture of care check-in, but we might do it with a thermometer. We might do, in a different way, but just understanding personally what everybody's going through before you even get into the work side of things, to understand that their headspace might not be where it should be that day and why. And is there anything that we can do as your teammates to support you and understand that you might be going through something, and understand that, your work might not be what you typically would produce that day, and understand that they're going through some things, before we even get into the work side of things.
Well, yeah, and we learned that in kindergarten, right? The temperature thermometer of, I'm in the red today, Have you seen an uptick in, just from a business standpoint, production and maybe not even just happiness, but just more, production. I can't think of a better word to use for that from your teams.
Yeah. I would say, you're productive, you're safe, and you're profitable. And,
there you go,
people wanting to show up to work every day happy and ready to go, that's the type of folks that we want. So these programs we put in place help with that. We want them to be able to wake up in the morning, be excited where they're going to work that day. And, anything that we can do with these programs that helps, make that drive to work a little bit easier for them with a smile on their face versus a frown, it's working for us.
Construction is always changing too. This world has always intrigued me. Obviously, we all know people who work in construction, whether we do or not. Maybe we even did it part-time as a teenager on a roof. But it's ever changing, and it's really interesting, and good on you guys to be so forthcoming and so, there for your team members. It's amazing and it's inspiring, to be honest.
Like I said, we're not afraid to try new things. If it's going to make us better, we're gonna put some effort to it. If it's not, we're gonna shelf that and go another direction. But listening to our employees, getting feedback from them, whether it's through surveys or conversations or committee meetings. We have wellness champions, we have culture care champions. Taking that feedback, whether it comes to Alyssa or me, and say, hey, we got a gap here that we need to fix. So empowering our employees with opportunities to help themselves and their fellow coworkers is another thing that we do that's really helped us over the years too.
988, of course, is the suicide prevention hotline. Is there any other messages, you would really like to leave everyone with before we say goodbye?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of resources out there. So more than 988, there's the Veterans Crisis Line as well. There's a website I really like called mantherapy.org.
Been to that website.
Yep, that's an awesome resource. And NAMI, your local NAMI. So anybody can find their local NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, so NAMI.org. So there's a lot of different resources out there, but I would say first step is just opening up and talking to somebody, again, whether that be a family member, a peer, or then a counselor or therapist. But that's the first step. And then again, it's going to be a ripple effect with everybody else, understanding how much courage it took you to be able to get the help you need. That's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I could probably ask for help too, and look at the success that they've seen by doing it. So any of those resources are a great first step.
I would just say again, utilize the resources and use your people. Figure out who your people are that you can come to these and come to these situations and have conversations with. And and maybe it is a 988 hotline or a veteran hotline, but don't be afraid to have that conversation. It's just can be as simple as, hey, you got a minute to talk, and then let them go.
And understand that you're not alone and that you matter.
You do matter. Being from the music community, this was a big conversation quite a few years ago that got opened up real hard. The dude rock, bro rock. What do you mean? Meanwhile, everybody's writing their feelings down in their songs and on notes and all that stuff. It's like, it's all right here. And it's so cool to see the trickle effect of it affecting other areas of the world, and especially in the construction industry, and for noticing it and taking advantage. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.